Hi, this is Paul Sanneman with Business Success Tips, where you're going to learn how to make more money in less time and have more fun. I have a special guest today, Al Levi, and he's the author of the Seven Power Contractor, his website, Seven Power Contractor. So I'm going to find out all he knows about this because anybody that wrote a book is smarter than me. So, okay. Al, tell me about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I came from a third generation heating company. We were located in Long Island, New York, the New York City Union Shop. If you know where JFK Airport is, just drive towards the water. That was our service area. And started out at my grandfather's gas station in 1936. And then while I was there, we were always working in the business. If you are in a family business, by the time you're 8, you're doing something.
Right.
Cleaning fittings, cleaning out toilets,
Absolutely.
dumping waste baskets. So that's kind of my life. And if I wanted to see my dad, he would gather us up in the middle of the night. We would go in his truck because we did residential, commercial, industrial. So I've got a really good thing. And then I left. My 2 brothers stayed there, my older brothers. And now it's on to the 4th generation. My nephew is there. And
Wow.
that speaks to systems and really having stuff in place that can, go generation to generation, which was not always the case. And then
most businesses fail. They don't pull it off. Most businesses, the chances of transition from generation to generation is very slim, and 4 times is almost none. So you're an anomaly there.
Yeah, no, and that is very true. And obviously, I've coached a lot of family businesses. I particularly enjoy doing that because I know how painful it can be and how good it can be when it's done right.
Okay, so the book, Seven Power Contractors. Tell us a little about that. And there it is. You got it right there. And so what's it about?
So basically, the 7 Power Contractor, we were actually serial entrepreneurs, my family. My dad, believed in all your eggs in one basket. And when we were young teenagers, me and my 2 older brothers, we were allowed to sit in on these business meetings. But the rule of thumb was don't ask anything. You write a note down. At the end, when everything's over, I'll answer any question you had. So we were in meetings very early. And so we also owned a chain of liquor stores, multi-state real estate, ice cream shop. We owned a radiant heat company. And so we were pretty versed at a whole bunch of different things. And but always the golden goose, as my father referred to it, was the plumbing, heating, cooling, electric company that did residential, commercial, industrial. And we kind of grew up on the belief that don't sit in the office, go do something, and the money will follow. And I can say, Paul, most times it did, but many times it did not.
I guess it works until it doesn't, right, Al?
That's right, exactly right. So back in those days, we didn't even know how to spell a budget. And I didn't learn about budgets till I joined Nexstar in the mid-90s. And my good friend Ellen Rohr, who's an industry giant, she explained to me about, doing a budget, and, better, more predictable, and the rest of it.
Right.
The way it really worked with us is the accountants would walk in about a month before the end of the year, and they would go, you had a great year. Go buy stuff, give yourself a bonus. And we really liked that.
Right. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. The next year they walk in and they go, you guys are not getting paid because, to show the banks the right statements and fill the rest of it. So I hope you guys all have money. And that was kind of until we became more enlightened and understood that, a successful outcome comes from doing budgeting and plugging your numbers back in. So that was kind of one of the transformational things. The other thing was too, is that we're not a small company. I mean, today companies are monsters, but we were 70 people, 17 million back in the, the 90s. That was a pretty major company.
Big company. Yeah.
Yeah. Today, of course, I've worked with companies that are 200 million in sales, but, and multiple locations. We were, 1 main hub and 3 spokes because drive time was very big. And so we learned a lot of the lessons of what it takes to run a systematic company.
So how do you make that transit? I mean, a lot of these guys out here that listen to this podcast are 2 guys, 5 guys, 10 guys, a lot of small contractors.
Yeah.
So they can't relate to this $17 million thing. They're going to go, okay, I have a hard time getting my guys to show up on time and do the job. It's really hard. I can't find people. I can't find clients. I was better off as a plumber. I made more money in less time and had more fun as a plumber than I do as a business owner, have made the transition from like a craftsman to a leader, and I'm lost. I'm having a hard time. Okay. I think there's a lot of people out there like that.
Oh yeah. There's a ton of people like that. Even before I left, my business to start this business 20 plus years ago, I was coaching people that were just exactly what you said, non-competitors to me. And the reality is, when you're a small company, yeah, you get to control everything and control the outcome. But heaven forbid you get sick or, get hurt or, pass away. What do you have as a business? So you're welcome to be any size you want to be. That's not for me to say. But I will tell you that it's a whole lot easier to run a well-designed, bigger company. And what I mean by that is usually people used to always ask me, when does life get good as a contractor? And I had the answer because I had been coaching for a while. And really, believe it or not, it's seven techs running every day. And the reason is because if you do, like, we were really a literal 24/7. We had shifts on, things of that nature. It isn't like we wrote it in those days in a phone book, today on your website. So it wasn't just that idea that somebody, would put that down and somebody answer a call. We actually would run calls. The thing is, most companies that are small, you burn out your techs. And also the other part about the math here is, if you have 7 techs and one of them also quits, fired, sick, whatever, misses the bus that's coming across the street, basically 14% of your sales is out the door. I'm not saying that doesn't hurt, but if you're a 2 or 3 truck outfit, you're looking at 50% or 33% of your sales out the door. And that's a big chunk to have to deal with. And so even though it feels like you're in control, the reality is you are not. When you work like this, where you have the cell phone here and you're trying to fix and you're answering calls and you stop. And then when you get home at night, and you're finally trying to eat, you're eating while you're doing the catching up on the invoicing. It's really a very painful process. I know a lot about it because I owned a Zoom Drain franchise. I was one of the owners. And one of the things that myself and my 2 partners, because the person we did it with was a customer of mine back in 2005. And Ellen Rohr had started Ben Franklin. So she was familiar with franchising. And I just said, I'm not going to be signing up to join this thing if we're going to have what I call one guy in a truck, which is a life of misery, in my opinion. So you had to buy 2 trucks out of the gate. You had to have a certain amount of things so that you could be building a company. And the question is,
well, I guess
do you really have a company?
How do you build it? I mean, everybody says to go build a company, right? But it's driven by obviously figuring out how to get the clients, because no clients, no company. How to get great employees, no employees, no company. So if you have great clients and you have great employees, it's not tough. But how do you get both of those? And what is like building a company mean? Be more specific, because these guys are.
No, I will be more specific about it, because as I said, with coaching, especially in the franchise with guys getting started, the biggest thing is to create the right org chart, which sounds ridiculous because, well, it's just me and my wife or my significant other. We do everything. And I go, well, yeah, you'll always do everything, but you don't know what you're doing when you're doing it. So even if somebody willing should show up and your company is growing, they really can't help you. So the right org chart is where you take control of your company. And that's the boxes, or what I call a bingo board, of the boxes it takes to run any contracting business. The box org chart that I have is now in place at companies from 1 million to 200 million. Now, I was plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, but it's in a commercial roofing company, kitchen cabinetry company, a commercial photographer, garage door companies. It's all.
So what does that org chart look like? Can you share that with us?
Yes. The org chart is basically very flat. So there's a top line is for the management, and then underneath it, there's a service wing, there's an install wing, there's a marketing wing, and then there's the accounting wing is primarily the main departments to it. And there's a specific reporting order for each of those. And what we learned that, for install, if there wasn't a sales manager who had both functions to make sure big tickets were sold right and then turned over right to the team, that install was for exercise, as we like to say, not for money. Because that's really what you want to do, is sell it right, do it right, no callbacks, so that install is profitable. Service is CSR, customer service rep, is like a happy hostess in a restaurant. They make you sound like you didn't interrupt their day. Their voice is welcoming. They let you know that when Al shows up, your plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, whatever, is going to be great again, explains how we work, getting paid a time of service or whatever, and then books the call and lets them know if there's any change, the dispatcher will take place. The dispatcher is on a different wing. They work under the service manager to maximize billable hours. Because most guys in the contracting business think that they are selling stuff. You are not selling stuff. You are selling your billable hours. The stuff goes with it. And so maximizing billable hours, maximizing who goes where and talent is very important. And that's why the dispatcher and service manager are in close proximity to do that as they dispatch out to the techs. And so apprentice to junior tech to senior tech to field supervisor were programs that we built so that we could take young, willing apprentices with no skills, which there are way more of, to willing techs with great skills. And as we got larger and needed to hub and spoke and manage the teams, they would go into the last program, which is senior tech to field supervisor. So where they would qualify, compete, and train. One of the biggest mistakes is, you know what, Paul's a good tech. Why don't we make him a supervisor? Paul doesn't know anything about what it takes to be a supervisor. So the usual way it ends up being is you went and you saw the movie Horrible Bosses, so you think you're going to be an SOB to everybody, and that doesn't work. Or you think you're going to be everybody's buddy, and that won't work. So it's a training program. And the boxes at the top are actually rented, which means you earn them at a quarter at a time. And the reason for that is you can't stay in those boxes at the top and fail because you're sabotaging the team that reports to you. Now, what goes on in the boxes are the documented operating manuals that we created back in the 90s for when we were just in heating. And it cost us about $150,000 in today's money.
So how does this relate to the 7 steps? What are these 7 steps?
The 7 powers was something that I stumbled on. Yeah, it's like, think of it as 7 building blocks. If you were building a pyramid, the bigger and stronger the blocks are at the bottom, the bigger your pyramid, the longer it'll last. Or if you're building a great home, your dream home, it's really about the foundation, right? So it's planning, operations, staffing, sales coaching, marketing, and finance. 7 things. Now that may sound to you guys as being a lot, but be aware, most days I thought there were 7 million things I had to master. Because I figured I was.
Can you go into a little detail on those? I mean, just give me a real specific example of each.
So planning power really is, well, the first question I ask, do you guys need another good idea, or do you need an idea implemented? And you know the answer is the second. You need an idea implemented.
Absolutely.
But how do you know which idea and when it gets implemented? So planning power, the best way I can describe it is the top of the funnel is the master project list. So everyone's great idea goes up there to live. And when I was getting paid a lot of money to go in to be a contractor, to help with contractors, that would typically end up being a list of about 100 to 125 projects and habits, not all projects. Some things were steps of corrective action, learning steps of delegation. Those are things that are all in that top list. You cannot work on 125 things. I don't care how much money you have or time. So you boil that list down by 2 strainers. You either strain it down because it's the biggest challenge and problem solved, or the greatest chance to grow and be profitable, and you arrive at your top 30. And the top 30 is what would you do in a year from now? So if you and I are, Paul, working together, next year, I want to know how many of those 30 did you get done? The next time is to use the same strainers on the 30, biggest problem or challenge solved, or biggest chance to grow and be profitable. You arrive at your top 5. And that 5 goes up on a board. That's not how you get it done. It's on a board that says, what is it that you want? Why do you want it? What is the status? And the reason is it tells everyone at your company what you're working on, why you're working on it, and what the status is. And I make them put it in the public because your team will know whether or not you're really serious about this.
So give me some examples of those that you've done before. Al.
So what's on the board typically is operating manuals, getting those in place, because otherwise everybody's out doing the thing their own way. We need to build a hands-on training center. We need to document our sales proposals so that no matter who goes to the job, they have templates and they could do it. We need to get the warehouse under control so that not everybody running in the warehouse can take anything they want, because I think I have 100 boxes of half-inch copper L's, and if it's wide open, I either have 100 or none. There's no control.
Right.
And the same thing goes for power tools going in and out of the warehouse. I used to hate as a tech. I had a power chop and hammer. I would go out an hour from a job because that's where it would always open up the box, and either the bits were flat, which means they were dull, or they were missing. It was a useless tool.
Right.
So power tools are signed in and out of the warehouse and then tested right there to make sure that you have a good tool. And when you return it, that it's a good tool. If it needs to go out to repair from wear and tear, those are typical things. Marketing, if you, like you mentioned, there are not enough calls. Well, marketing really comes down to three things: a marketing plan and writing, and then it comes down to marketing budget, which is typically a percentage of sales, which, think of it as like fuel in a gas tank. You're not going very far without it. And then, so there's only a million ways to go to market. What are going to be the three main drivers? That doesn't mean it's the only three things you do, but what's going to get the majority of your time, your energy, and your money. And the last one that everyone misses is a marketing calendar. You're busy, 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 and then all of a sudden it gets dead. And I know when I was a contractor, I'd pick up my phone because I thought it was broken.
Right.
It's too late. You have to have it already set up. Direct mail, postcards on the shelf that are with testimonials. You have a radio ad campaign that you can do. And so the marketing calendar is actually created going backwards through the year so that you're always in this marketing mode of some things that are, PPC, LSA, GMB. There's a million ways to go to market. But if you try to do all of these marketing things at one time, it's akin to buckshot rather than rifle shot. And then, of course, measurement, objective measurement.
Right. So that's the first step, right? We've got 7 to go here. So we're going to.
So that we were talking about planning, and then operations is really the org chart, the box org chart, which then becomes the depth chart. And if you ever play football, the center gets hurt. What do we do? Not play? So who's trained and cross-trained for each of these boxes? Much easier to do with manuals, much easier to do with the training program that I also have that takes the manuals, leverages it into the right hands-on training center, training curriculum, and then you are doing 80% of the training because that's the only way you can control it. If you think you can just turn it over to somebody else or send them away to things, you'll never gain control the way you need to do. So operating power is really that big piece. Staffing power builds, like I was mentioning before, is getting in the pipeline, willing apprentices, no skills, getting them through the 5 steps of staffing, which is always recruiting, always hiring, always orienting, always training and retaining. Now, we were not born enlightened. And my brother who was in the office used to say that the way we hired people was called the mirror test, because we were
fog a mirror.
Fog a mirror.
Right.
And so finally we realized the insanity of it. And we realized we were growing, we needed more people. Right. And frankly, we tolerated misbehavior because we didn't have anybody else. But once we committed to always be recruiting, and for those who are listening, recruiting is marketing. The difference is you're recruiting to a different market. And so where are these apprentices hanging out? Are they, what's your reviews on Glassdoor? There's a lot of ways to attract them. You absolutely have to be good at social media because it's such a big magnet for them. But the goal is to get them in. And then, so it's recruiting, hiring, orienting so that they can get on a truck and be useful. And then you bring them into this big training that I'm speaking to, apprentice to junior tech, junior tech to senior tech. And if the company warrants, senior tech to field supervisor.
Got it. So that's that's 2, right? What's 3?
So it's planning, operations, staffing is what I've covered so far.
Oh, staffing.
Sales. Yeah, sales is the next thing. Sales is 2 things. If your techs are empowered to go to a home, ask them questions, look around, get a survey, and get permission from a customer, for what they must do and what they'd like to do. They check with the dispatcher, and if all things being equal, you do it then, because it's the only best time to do it. So they have good sales skills. And sales, to me, my program was named ethical selling when I used to teach this to contractors. I don't believe you have to sell anybody anything that's not in their best interest. Right. Actually, I think it's wrong to do anything different than that. but I make good recommendations about everything. And the better you're trained and the better you understand this stuff, not just from a sales point, but from a technical standpoint, the customer is going to be better served. And then what the result is, your tickets are better. And believe it or not, your higher sales will also drive more client satisfaction, which ends up in more testimonials, which is what you need for the next step, which is marketing power. And marketing power I was talking about before is the marketing plan, marketing budget, marketing allocation, main drivers, marketing calendar. But you do need to know, if you and I are in an elevator and I look over at your shirt and it goes, so why should I use your company? In the space of an elevator ride, you better have some compelling reasons why you're the person I should pick. So knowing the unique selling proposition, knowing your target areas, knowing the products that you have, knowing what you're going to do in writing, those are really kind of the big things that come into this process.
Okay.
So after marketing, so sales and marketing, financial is, you can do all of what I've said, but if you're not charging the right price, you're going to go broke.
Right.
Really that easy. So it really all begins with doing budgeting the right way. Because if it doesn't work on quote unquote paper or Excel, it's not going to work anywhere else. And the sooner you get attached to running your business, no matter what size it is, on percentages, the better it's going to be for you. And even though it's a wild guess, the more you plug your numbers back, the better it gets.
Right. So the budget, is the finance the last part?
Yeah, that's the last one. Planning, operations, staffing, sales coaching, which is the reward program, and then financial. Now, sales coaching really trails financial, because right now, how would you know how you're rewarding me? Is it money that I created, or is it money out of your wallet? And the answer should be a screaming money I create.
Right.
And you're never going to be able to do that until you have a known financial position. And that only comes out of budgeting. And then again, going above goal or above the KPIs is where I create my own money as a tech or as an installer or as a big ticket salesperson.
Right. That's great. So that's a very, where do people, they want this book, which I assume this is all outlined in your book. Where would they get that?
Yeah, Amazon. It's available paperback, ebook, and it's also available in Audible for those who are stuck in the truck.
Right.
Yeah, all three ways.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, what does that book cost? It's literally you spend $10-15 and make 100,000.
I think it's $25 for the paperback, of which I get a fraction of it. So you're not putting my kids through college.
No, I don't think so. I did a book once, and I think it was $10.
Audible's even cheaper than that. So yeah, there's no excuse. It's good books applied well, and there are some great books out there. They're really well. But this book was written to be read in 2 to 4 hours, but the reality is you're going to read it over and over again. This is not my ego speaking. It's how I wrote it, and it's been the experience of those who have read it.
Okay. So if they are interested in it, now, does this apply? What if they're not a plumbing company? What if they're a residential contractor or a general contractor or build new homes? Does it still apply to them?
It applies to anybody that's in the contracting business. So it isn't just designed, it is geared more to home service contractors. But the reason that it applies to everything is because I was in residential, commercial, and industrial. So I have a pretty good knowledge to it. The foundational pieces, or those big blocks that I was talking about, they're pretty much the ones you need. Can you tweak them to better fit what you do? Yeah. Because if you're a general contractor, you're working in a different segment. If you're commercial, you're working facility managers. I've done all of that.
Okay. So, I mean, this is great information. And the good news is you have a very specific thing Al wanting people to do. It's not like, literally it's in a book, right? They just have to order the book. It's whatever, $15-20. And if they apply the book, it'll work. Now, last question I have for you is, how do you get people to apply it? I mean, we have a country that's getting fatter, as you probably know, and everybody knows the answer is to eat less and exercise, but people don't seem to get around to it. So how do you actually get this stuff implemented? To me, that's got to be the hardest part.
Yeah. So I was talking about the top 5, and you need what I call a meeting with me. So mine is on Sunday. pick whatever day you like, but it's a 2-hour block where you are working on your top 5 in real time.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean it's the only time you should be working on your top 5. And the reason I say that is you picked the top 5. You told me this will fix your biggest problem or challenge or give you the greatest chance to grow and be profitable. So please tell me, what are you doing that's more important that you didn't get around to this?
Right.
The answer is none. There's nothing
Right.
that you can't do, but you have to build it into your calendar. And that's one of the things in my online programs, the operating manual program and my staffing program. One of the things I have is about time management, because Paul, you're right, spot on. It's a good idea going to die. You have to be able to build the time, to put the work in place and do that. So in the time management course talks about time blocking, and really taking control of your calendar is where everything goes in a better direction.
I could agree more, because the only limited asset you've got is time. You can get more else, you can't get more time. And the number one reason people don't time management is no time, right? Which is stupid. So I think it's getting people motivated. I mean, you have the answer in this book. There's no doubt about it that if people did all the stuff you told them to do in this book, they would have a better life. Zero doubt in my life. The question is, how do you get that? I like that 2-hour meeting is a good idea. I mean, how do you get them to go through this process? I guess they read the book, they take each part of it, they try to implement it.
Yeah. So as to the book, it's really on you to do the work. And there's those who do. Now, if you want the operating manuals and the org charts, I do have an online program. And if you go to my website, go to the products, you'll see it there. And that's way more than what I spent $150,000 on, because there's way more trades, there's way more boxes defined. I also know the lessons about, what the tone of the manuals are, how to get buy-in, how to roll it out. There's a lot of things that I'm taking you through that program if you're really serious about getting.
It's sort of like you're offering them a franchise opportunity for $25.
Well, the book is
right.
Yes, the online program is 10 grand. And so people go, oh, 10 grand. I go, well, I tell you, I spent 150 grand and paid it off in 2 years. So, it's way more content. It's way more in what you need to know, because I didn't have a trail guide. And so this program is set up that you have a trail guide. And if you buy the bigger program, you also get 6 30-minute Zoom sessions. So if you're stuck, you can reach out and somebody will be able to support you in what it is, because like you talked about, but we don't call you up and go, hey, you should come to a meeting. There's when you're speaking to, Paul, is about self-discipline. And if you want to change what you're doing, I will talk to a book that really changed my life and the arc of my life and my career all these many years ago. And here's the funny part. 30 years later, it's got a whole new life again. The book is Michael Gerber's E-Myth.
Right. I've read it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you, not a super long book. I think most business books that are too big don't know what they're talking about. So I believe in smaller books, but what it told me was that nothing was ever going to change if I'm always working in the business, which I was, versus working on the business, which I was not. Right. And so it told me why things didn't work. It told me what I needed to do. Really gave me nothing in the way of how, but I was pretty smart. I worked out the how in the org charts, the manuals, which then led to the staffing and taking control, so that I was not hostage to my employees. And by and far and wide, the guys that I coached did not have an employee shortage. Everyone else during COVID is, oh, where do I find great techs? Well, that's a new problem, Paul, unless you were born like about around when I was in 1985, because it's not a new problem. And if you're always going to try and hire lightning in a bottle, and a lightning bottle means that they are skilled and they're willing to do stuff your way, good luck. It's very hard to replicate that and scale it. The way I'm talking about is much more doable.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, thanks all. I really appreciate this. Listeners, I really hope you get his book, because I've been a coach for, God knows, 40 years, and that's all really solid information. And the good news, you don't have to read 50 books. You can read one. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm not a fast reader. 2 to 4 hours. I guarantee you. You can read it.
Okay.
And if you're an Audible guy, just listen to it on Audible.
Sounds good to me. Well, thanks. I appreciate you coming. And as my son said, if you're interested in this, subscribe to this channel and you'll get more of this information. So Al, thanks a lot. I appreciate being here, and the information was amazing. And all you have to do is read the darn book. We're good, right? Everything,
We're good.
everything you said. Okay. Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.